So I'm calling this talk Warning, Mobile May Be Habit Forming. Because like you, I suppose, I have been noticing lately a whole lot of new habits that I'm forming around my devices. We heard some of them actually at the end of this last panel. It was very, very interesting. I'll tell you one of my current favorite ones, which is I'll be sitting at my desk and sitting in front of my PC. The PC is on, it's connected to the internet. I've got all my software there, I've got a web browser, and I'm answering email on my phone. You know, so what's that all about? So we're forming these new habits, and one way we can understand mobile as a medium is the way we can understand any medium, which is to think about the habitual behaviors that people develop around their use. So when we develop habitual behaviors, these behaviors become ritualized. So go back in time just a little bit, or maybe even today, you still do some of these rituals. The ritual of kind of bending down and picking up the newspaper every morning off of your stoop or at the end of your driveway. The ritual of gathering around with your family on the couch to watch a show. The ritual of getting into your car and turning on NPR as you make the right turn to get onto the highway. Or the ritual even of syncing your latest playlist before you go out for a run. Right? What's especially interesting about rituals is that we attach emotions to them. So these ritualized behaviors, we anticipate them, we look forward to them. You know, we miss them when they're gone, when they're over. And this is extremely important for advertising because there is a whole wealth of advertising research that demonstrates that when advertising messages insinuate themselves into these rituals, the advertising is much more effective and much more impactful. It's noticed more, it's remembered more, and people will associate the experiences and the emotions of these shows or these devices or these experiences with the emotion they've attached to these rituals. So think about the habits that we're developing around mobile, and we're definitely developing a whole bunch of new habits that we're first beginning to realize and understand. So like this guy. You know, 10 years ago, this guy wasn't doing this, and now this guy is doing this all the time, every day, probably like putting it down in certain ways, picking it up in certain ways. Or what about this? So I have kids that are about this age, and there's like this entire like swarming mobile, television, gaming, communicating. There's about 50 other people who are not in this picture because they're playing games simultaneously with them in another house somewhere while they're doing this. And this is actually where they're watching the Super Bowl. And you can imagine, like these are ritualized. Now they're looking forward to this. This is what going over to their friend's house to watch the Super Bowl means, and they anticipate it. And it's an entirely new kind of experience that has mobile at its core. And then there's also these very, very intimate new mobile moments that we're all discovering in our lives, in privacy and personal moments. And there's these functional moments that are happening when we're out on the go and using our device very functionally. And you know, there's this whole other thing going on with respect to found time. You hear this expression, found time. So we're finding time to do things that we never knew we had anymore because of the mobility and the ability of ourselves, you know, to just access anything all the time, whether it's functional or entertainment oriented. So these rituals associate themselves with behaviors. The behaviors affect the impact of the advertising because the emotions attached to the rituals. So until we understand these full range of mobile behaviors, we won't be able to unlock all of the advertising revenue potential of the medium until we start to categorize and understand these behaviors. So I think everybody is familiar with these kinds of numbers. About a quarter of all ad spend next year will be digital. A little bit less than a quarter of that will be mobile, and most of that is going to the top 5 mobile companies. So let's take a quick review of the state of mobile advertising. Okay, so search is a big part of that. 95% of the mobile search revenue is going to Google. So let's not talk about search. Search is sort of settled. Location targeting. We're all spending a lot of time thinking about location-based advertising, location targeting. a lot of technology going behind it, a lot of thinking going behind it, and yet more than 70% in the aggregate of mobile behavior is taking place when people are at home. So maybe unless you've recently moved, the notification that there happens to be a certain subway near your house may not be all that important, right? But we're still it's a part of the mobile ad ecosystem. And then of course there is the sort of the download centric executions, the upsell, the freemium upsell executions. And these particular examples of where mobile is going are particularly concerning to me because they tend to look at mobile as a channel. They tend to think of it as a closed loop environment. And I'm really, really concerned that we may make the same mistake with mobile that we made with the web. We turned it into a closed loop environment where everything was evaluated on its ability to generate clicks and actions that kept you in the environment. And if you can think back to some of the first banner ads in the very first internet bubble, you remember these kinds of executions where you were supposed to figure out which cup had the ball under it and win a prize, right? Or what about the second one there where you see the little X in the corner of that banner? Do you suppose that closed the ad? No, I don't think so, right? So there were all these kinds of executions that came up because the whole thing was focused on driving clicks, and the clicks would then create actions, and the actions would pay the content provider, and they would be encouraged to make more clicks. So this sort of download or freemium stay within the mobile channel is I think, going to lead us down a path where we might not want to end up. And I'm afraid if you look at some of the, here's some current mobile executions. Well, actually, they don't quite look like this. They look more like this. But you see the same kind of thinking playing out, right? And I think that if we do this, let's just not do this. Let's not treat mobile like the web, only smaller. If we treat mobile like the web, only smaller, I'm afraid what's going to happen, and we already saw an article about this yesterday, is that this chart is going to move like this, and we're going to see the mobile spend come out of the digital web spend, and we're going to just see this sort of same kinds of tactics and the same sort of objectives come into play for advertisers. We're going to encourage that sort of closed loop mobile behavior. When instead, if we can unlock this full range of mobile behaviors, we can unlock way more advertising revenue. And I think the key to that is not to think of mobile as a channel, but to think of it as a horizontal. So yes, mobile can do some of the things the internet can do, but it can also do some things that television does, and out-of-home does, and in-store promotions do. And if we can begin to characterize this full range of mobile behaviors and mobile use cases, we can see this chart go like this, which is where we need to have it go, which is to unlock the full scope of ad dollars that can and should be accessible to mobile. And the key is understanding these new habits, these new behaviors, and the way these devices are used in this ecosystem. So what do we know so far? Okay, so one thing we know for sure is that there's an awful lot of mobile usage happening while people are watching television, right? So 77% of TV time is spent with a mobile device, and almost half that is with a smartphone. So that's definitely true. But even underneath that, there's a whole range of behaviors, as we know. So the device can be used as a remote control. There's applications like that. We should be able to characterize that and what the right kind of behavior is associated with that. They're used as second screens, or not as second screens, in this case as alternate screens. So we heard about that at the end of the last panel. People in the house, sitting down, watching a show on a phone, watching a show on a tablet, watching the show on TV. So in that case, they're really just used as a television substitute completely, as an alternate screen. Then there's these pre-made second screen applications where they're definitely used to be a companion sort of experience. And each of these will have their own kind of habits associated with them, their own kind of use cases associated with them, and their own appropriate type of advertising associated with them. Designers, I wanted to talk about this one too, that there's this synchronous mobile behavior. There's this transfer of actions between devices. So 90% of people, this is according to a recent Google study, move from one device to another to complete a task all within a 24-hour period. So for example, you could be reading an article on your desktop and you transfer it over to a read later application, you finish it that evening on the way home. Or you could be watching something on Netflix in the evening and then picking it up the next morning on your commute to work. So we start tasks on one device, we finish them on the other device. So there's this sort of sequencing behavior, which is a really interesting behavior also. And you probably can recognize it in yourselves too, that you do these kinds of things. Designers, experienced designers, are getting very far down the path of thinking about these different use cases. And they're defining these different things: coherence, synchronization, screen sharing, device shifting, complementarity, and simultaneity. There's a school of thought around experience design focused on a lot of these different kinds of applications. And I think what we need to do as content creators and as media planners and buyers is insinuate the content and the advertising into these different kinds of use cases in order to characterize the kind of behaviors that are taking place and find the appropriate advertising technique to match those behaviors. So I want to just suggest, as a thought starter, a simple way that we might be able to start to do this, okay? So very simply, we can be in-home or out-of-home. So these are all these different mobile use cases, okay? In-home or out-of-home. We can be standing up, or we can be in repose, okay? We could be moving or not moving, okay? So now start to mix and match these things and think about which advertising channel is most appropriate to take budget from and move it over to mobile, okay? So here's this one. So we're out of home, standing, and moving, and we could geolocate this person as being in a store. So this is a perfect opportunity to create a promotional use case, take promotional dollars and out-of-home dollars, and realize this person is not in a closed-loop channel, right? Or this one, they're in-home, relatively sedentary, not moving at all, so this is a second screen occasion, an alternate screen occasion, and we can think about that as a television use case and talk about television dollars in these instances. And here, out of home, not in repose, let's say, but moving. And this is a commuting kind of application. You can think about this as a print substitute. You can think about this as a out-of-home substitute. And we can begin to start to say, what are these occasions? What should we be thinking about? And from an advertising perspective, how do we put it in context so we can get to these different kinds of ad budgets for mobile? And here's one that we've talked about before. At home, in repose, not moving at all, alternative screen, so television advertising use case. Now, the thing about this is, businesses are not set up to think this way. We think in channels, we think in silos, we organize ourselves in channels, in silos. I just pulled the org chart from, this is Sterling Cooper's org chart. I wanted to show an agency org chart. This is Sterling Cooper, just right after they were reorganized because they were acquired by Putnam, Powell, and Lowe. But no, seriously, I show this to you in jest, but also to say that, how are agencies organized? By, buying groups that are by channel, right? And this is an ad that Sterling Cooper did for Facebook. I don't know if you saw this new thing, Facebook. But it's really, but I mean, think about this. So seriously, this is like, what if there was a Facebook ad that presumed that Facebook had the habitual use of Facebook was somebody sitting down and treating it like a channel that you did here. And so Facebook isn't used that way, but ads are designed by channel and they're bought by channel, right? And there's a reason for that too, which is that we used to consume them in these channels, in these silos. So we had to make time to go turn on the radio. We had to make time to go read the newspaper or watch television. And mobile is a disruptor of this whole behavior system. It's a disruptor of the organizational structures that are in place. It's a horizontal, not a channel. And so So we all have to really be change agents to get out there and explain this, and we have to all work in our organizations to explain this and characterize this and do as much research as we can to uncover these new mobile habits and mobile behaviors, because we don't have that much time, because the accelerating change in the marketplace is now really, really extreme. Right now, we use our phone, we pull it out to do all sorts of different things, but in fact, very soon, new devices are coming on board that are going to not require us to pull our phone out of our pocket. We're going to have our phone be in our pocket and be sort of like the hub on like a personal local area network, almost like a secondary nervous system. Because think about how unnatural it is to pull out your phone all the time to do all these different things. So we're already seeing the way Google Glass will display the text messages we get and respond to them automatically when we say so, and just say the words. Okay, so this stuff is happening. And then, in addition to that, part of this personal local area network is going to involve devices like these, like the Fitbit and the Fuel Band, that are going to be contributing data to this little personal area network that is going to be biometric data that's going to tell us about ourselves and our moods. And I just wanted to show you this. This is a commercially available video camera that does something called Eulerian projection, where just by watching someone through a camera, you can see their blood flow. So you can see, is this person agitated or not? So soon we're going to have to add to the in-home, out-of-home, standing up or in repose, in motion or not motion, calm or agitated. And we're going to have all these kinds of occasions. You know, the palette for advertising is really becoming experience. And that includes our own state of being. And it's not very, very far. So things are moving very fast. We need to get this message out into the marketplace about mobile as a disruptor of behavior, as a horizontal cutting across channels, not as its own closed-loop silo. And we really need to do this quickly. We need to understand these emerging behaviors, characterize them, share them among ourselves and within our organizations. We don't want to make the same mistakes. We don't want mobile to be the web, only smaller. And we need to think as content creators and as media buyers of how to make our products suitable to be these horizontally based cross-channel executions that take into account people's situation, their mood, because if we do that right, then we'll be able to capture a much larger piece of the ad spend than we currently do. And I think that's just about time for cocktails. So I thank you very much, and I want to pass it back over to you.